Hey, I believe everyone in the room will know who you are, but just in case.
Just
to give yourself a little bit of indulgence. Tell
well,
us who you are.
I do love the attention. I guess in an entrepreneurship setting, I left. So I was Global Insight Director at EMI. I built and ran their big data team. Sorry, I'm going to talk very quickly because it's a short period of time. For those in a second language, if it's too quick, just throw a shoe at me and I will learn. So I built and ran the global big data team at EMI. So that was 13 billion rows of Spotify, iTunes data. Moved over when Universal bought EMI to the consumer side of things, ended up kind of second in command of the team as a reflection of them firing everyone more senior than me and my mate. You learn fast that way when you're thrown in. Left there after a year and set up the catchily named Media Insight Consulting. We do, catchy name. We work with top tier clients across the industry, so we've done Sony ATV, the O2, Spotify. We tend to work with the big players in different music verticals. And I also created a music conference you might have heard of called FastForward.
Which is amazing. So we were talking last night and we covered a few points. Something that was really interesting that I wanted to bring up and kind of discuss with you is how much does vision play a part in an entrepreneur's role? Because we spoke about Elon Musk and some people were saying that it's not him, it's his team that are the genius behind everything that happens. But we were saying something different.
Yeah, I mean, I think vision is one of the key things that an entrepreneur brings. Because I think doing the logistics of running this is a completely different skill set to taking the vision for wanting this before it existed. And I'm using FastForward as the easiest example just because we're literally all here. That there was not a massive demand for yet another music conference. I worked out at one point, I looked at my rent and thought if I was to stay with friends on sofas, I reckon I could do a year on the conference circuit and just not go home. Because there was something every week, there always is. And therefore, to look at that environment and think, why would we need something new? Actually, we looked at it and it all felt very similar, and there was a gap for speaking opportunities for people who weren't the usual speakers. So that was kind of, I guess, the macro picture. The micro picture, one of the massive tipping points, a friend of mine, Anna Pancaldi, Unsigned Music Award runner-up for Best Female Songwriter.
Yeah, nominee.
Yeah,
runner
pity.
We don't have
She's great. Had been texting me. We met years back. We met maybe 3-4 years ago, and she was texting me regularly, have you got an hour for me? Can we chat? And I was running a small business. I didn't have it. Have you got an hour? Have you got an hour? And I just didn't know how to say I haven't got the time for you. Because how do you tell someone like, I value what I'm doing more than I value you? Like, how do you have that chat? She texted me, have you got a half hour for me? And at that point, it's like, I can't not, but I haven't got it. And so we looked at, well, hang on, you're going to need advice on social media, you're going to need advice on marketing, you're going to need advice on all these things that I'm not world class at. Why not get a room full of people who are and come out, be a part of it, and learn from the best rather than probably me on a hangover? So that was kind of the big picture, macro trend, fine, but you've also got that personal element to it. That was a real tipping point for me that went, you know what, let's give this an actual go. And the same is true of our Sydney event, that I don't think I'm out of line to say. So Emily Scoggins, head of marketing at the O2, Sarah's boss, is coming out to speak for us in Sydney. And we talked about it 12 months before we actually announced it. And when we kept hitting barriers, we kept hitting against things, I knew she wanted to go. And I knew I committed to her that we were going to try and make this happen. And on the worst days of, do we do this or do we just give it up? Knowing that there was a person at the end of it was really important for me. Bring it back to vision, where we started. I think without that vision, a lot of things don't get done. I think it's easy to look at things after they're done and go, well, yeah, of course it worked. Well, conference for under 35s, you can't afford their own tickets necessarily, you get a boss to sign off on travel and expenses, haven't got a company credit card in a foreign city. Wasn't necessarily the easiest route. But here we are and it kind of works. So, good woo.
Amazing. It definitely kind of works. And I think kind of briefly touched on it in that, but decision making is the next part that we need to get to. So I think that when you're running a company, no matter the size or scale of it, there are decisions that need to be made that don't just impact you, but impact, for example, everyone in this room. One of the decisions that you've made is scaling internationally, and it comes down to understanding or feeling when the time is right to do so, and what the variables are, what the frightening factors might be, and how much do you commit when you're uncertain of whether you're going to be able to achieve it or not, and then how much do you push out to the world saying we're going to do this, still not really knowing whether you're going to achieve it or not.
I mean, how do you take risk sensibly? We didn't. And so the advice is different to the practice. Sometimes you've got to be bold, sometimes you've got to just dive in. Amsterdam, year one, 28th of December for a 2nd of February event. We had 30 speakers confirmed out of a target 40, and we had 5 ticket sales. And I put my reputation on this. I've gone to Will Page, my boss from PRS, who's Director of Economics at Spotify, keynote for us, come out, get yourself here on your own dime, but it'll be great. That's a scary moment. That's when, I've put my reputation on this. It took a long time to get that. And the last thing you want to be remembered for is shot his mouth off, couldn't deliver as a fairly new consultant in the music industry, because lots of people leave big labels and consult. And kind of to try and be doing it properly was quite a risk to take this on. And we had no right to do it. I'm an economist. Not an events guy, not a marketing guy, got none of the skill set, thank God for Michael. So how do you take a sensible risk? What we should have done is taken smaller steps. We should have tested the idea, we should have seeded it out, we could have had a board of people helping us pull it together so that you get the network effect of all of their networks, the people who are invested in, and people who are kind of going to go and promote it because they feel some shared ownership of it. As it was, I internalised it all, I took it all on me. It's my nature. I mean, I'm getting on from shadows, I like doing myself too. But it is so easy to just go, it would take too long to explain it, I'll just do it. And it's so easy to do that over and over again. I think if I were doing it again, I would spread the risk out a little bit, I would share better with people to really just share the burden and have a bit more community, because it can be a lonely place. They don't tell you that about running a startup. It's lonely, you never get a day off, and rest is massively disturbed because you always know there's more to do. It can be a really tough place to be. I might be jumping to the end. What's next?
Yeah, well, no, we're getting there, yeah. So I think you kind of went onto it there again, but ego is it's important in 2 different factors, right? I mean, ego is something that can drive you, but can also get in the way of what people perceive you to be. Like you said, who are you to put on this event? And you needed to protect essentially what your ego was in that point.
Yeah, I mean, I had, at one point, my boss in, I won't say the job because it gives away who it was, took me aside and went, "You're developing an ego, I don't like it." And I went back to my dad and went, "Am I getting out of line?" Because we chat to him about stuff. He doesn't know this story. We kind of chatted to him and went, "Am I getting too big for my boots?" He's like, "You stand up in front of people and tell them they're wrong, regularly and often. You need a bit of ego to protect you from when they disagree with you. You need a little bit of that bravado." And we were chatting we've had a few good natters recently. And one of the big things for me, I had depression when I was 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Got away with it for 1 year at uni and then it was back. And it's something you fight with regularly. And it's one of those annoying fights where if you win it, knockout punch round 1 when something's vulnerable, great. You knock it on the head, you leave it alone for a while, it comes back, but you knock it on the head again, you're good. If you let it creep in a little bit, it makes such a difference. It's so much harder to deal with it once you've let it take 4 steps, once you've let it put its gloves on, so to speak, to continue the bad boxing analogy. But once if you don't deal with it straight away, it can really creep. So when I worked at PRS, I had a moment, I remember clear as day, someone phoned me and said, "These numbers you've sent me, they're no good, I can't send them, you can't use LHS, left-hand side, as an abbreviation, this is going to France." And she's phoned me to go, basically, what the fuck? First swear? Oops.
Any excuse for a drink, I'll take it.
And I've literally gone, you know what? You didn't tell me it was going to France. This isn't my fault. And I started drawing the line of what I was willing to accept 3 yards further away from me. So that when someone hurt me, it hurt, but it was 2 yards away still. And it would take something really serious to get to me properly. And there was a really important exercise for me in just being comfortable, not carrying other people's burdens, not being so vulnerable every time. And it was a really important step in, really, I guess to some extent, being able to step out and grow into running your own company, which ain't easy, doing this, which I love, but ain't easy. And that kind of, how close do I let everyone get to me? There's a healthy distance, at least on professional relationships, so you're not living and dying with every moment of it. That it's kind of like, it's there, I'm here, I'm good. Okay, that could have hurt a bit, but we're okay, we'll fix it, we'll get it back to where it should be. I think as life advice goes, it was great hearing Alex talk earlier, so honest, so open. But for me, just that, you can come this far but no further. This is as far as you're allowed. And if you get a bit further, okay, but we'll get it back to the right relationship. Drawing that line further away from me was probably the single best decision I've made for my overall well-being. Sorry, that got deep fast. Next.
Perfect. No, and again, Alex you touched on a few amazing points earlier. Great talk. But I think bringing it back to kind of parts of Alex's talk is how important to you are the little things. And by that I mean giving yourself space to live life, because business and when you're running a startup, it can be all consuming, and it is. And you need to be a person, you need to have relationships with your friends, your family, and they are really important. So let's talk through those.
Hugely. So finding space is so hard. I think of it like being a uni student. I always got student guilt, as I would call it, that I could always be studying a bit more, could always be trying a bit harder on that essay. You're watching telly, and student guilt would just kind of creep in. This is really insight to what goes on in my head. Sorry, guys. That you would have that kind of creeping thing. In fact, I could be doing this. I should be doing that. I should be doing more. I should be trying harder. But you've only got so much capacity. And so I'm not good at taking myself away. Cricket is the one thing I do where I just don't think about work. And that's nice, it's family. Dan's getting much better than me recently, which has been great fun to watch. But it's a real family activity. Dad's involved, mum comes and watches, and for me, it's 7-8 hours on a Saturday, desperately antisocial sport, that is just clear head time. You're stood in the field, there's nothing else to really do. You're stood at backward point, hoping no one hits it at you really hard. But you're kind of just chilling. And it's, for me, it was a real respite. For other people, it's the gym. Merck Mercuriadis, who spoke for us in London, used to manage kind of Iron Maiden, currently still looks after Nile Rodgers. He will say, and I think he won't mind me saying, hits the gym every morning and it keeps his head right. That's his view on it. And he's got his routine, he's got his time. And for him, it helps. It's the start of the day, he starts right. And that is, everyone knows, you don't put any time in with him at that slot because that is his routine, that's his time. And I think having time that is yours, whether it doesn't need to be passive or active, it just needs to be yours. I think that's important. Quality time with friends, important too. I drink too much, let's be honest. I drink too much. Usually with you, but I drink too much. And it doesn't help my sleep cycle. It doesn't help my concentration. It makes work harder than it should be. It doesn't help my energy levels. And it's one that's on the list to not cut it out completely, and not this weekend, but to rein it back in and to be much more sensible about, I suppose it's about being deliberate with how I look after my body, how I choose to guard myself. I've got no idea what the question was, but that was helpful.
It was, it was spot on all the way through, actually. It was how are the little things, how important are they? How much time do we have left?
In the same way, not letting little things bother you. That it can be really easy when it's your thing to take offence to any small number of things. And it can be death by 1,000 cuts. Everything's going great, except for 10 little things. And you let them steal your joy. That's really easily done too. So I think in the little things you do to look after yourself, really important. Any kind of mental health stuff, dealing with it quickly is better than later. Having people to talk to makes a huge difference there. I phoned my mum for a chat last week and went, just had to tell someone, I'm feeling a lot of pressure at the moment. I'm fine. But I wanted to tell you, so that at least I've taken that step. So if tomorrow I'm not fine, you've had the heads up. But actually the act of going, yeah, it's a little close today, is really valuable. Probably 3 minutes left, I reckon.
And how about, on the contrast to that then, giving yourself the credit where it's due, so stepping back from everything that you're involved in at one point, like everything you've created with FastForward, how important, and how often do you step back and go, actually, I should be proud of what I've achieved here, and this is really important to give myself that?
Yeah, so one of the hardest things I found, I've never been money conscious. I've never measured success that way. And running a consulting business, it suddenly became the measure of how well I was doing. And I found that really hard. Because it's never motivated me. And the privilege that goes with that, I fully appreciate. I appreciate as much as possible for someone from my position, but the having to look at yourself that way and measuring, was I worth X today? I charged a client Y. Was I worth it? To find your value suddenly in that number and whether you delivered on it is really quite tough. And I'd never really defined what it was for me to feel success. That life had always been okay. I had tumbled out of banking into the music industry and I hit big data at the right time, and I got lucky on a few things and worked with some great people, had great mentors along the way. And I'd just stumbled from not success to success, but always from kind of good to good. And it was really hard for me for a while to disassociate my success with my bank balance. Having never put the two together, it crept up on me quite a lot. So I then kind of measured that much better. Do I ever look back? I mean, for me, you guys here, amazing. Love that you are here. But the bit that I love isn't, so when I look at my success, the bit that I value isn't often what people expect. So the bit I value most is you guys getting to know each other. It's nice that you're all here. It's nice that I get to steal 15 minutes because Smarter Price had dropped out last minute. Jokes about that later. I've got many mean things to say about them, but there we go. Oops. We'll cut that out the video. The reality is it's the conversations you have. It's the deals you do. It's seeing Jake Isaac in the conference program because he was here 2 years ago as a guest. He spoke for me at a panel. The CEO of 7 Digital put him in touch with MQA, and now he's done a massive advertising campaign with them, and he's one of the big faces of MQA. That has very little to do with me, but what a win. And it's those wins that I really, that for me, the success isn't, so it's hard to judge, because I don't often look at me and go, nailed it. But I do look at the good that is done, the net impact of things like this, the conversations you'll be having. I mean, those for me, that's when I look at it and go, yeah, that was good. Good for me more than successful. Good kind of almost intrinsically.
Of course, I think you have nailed it. So from me to you, nailed it.
See you, mate. Got time for one more if you want, or you can
So I think lessons are an important part of every single day. And as entrepreneurs, I think we learn tougher lessons than perhaps some other people do. Do you have any lessons that you can impart? This probably was one I should have prepped you for.
Yeah, no. So they always say, like, sweat the small stuff. So detail matters. One of my favourite bits of advice on kind of assertiveness, kind of negotiation training was that there's only one way to build trust, and it's really simple. Do what you said you would do when you said you'd do it. Not complex, it's hard, but it's not complex. If you can get that bit right, the rest plays out. Other key sound bites that get banded around the office, I would much rather do 10 times as much work with good people than half as much work with people who are not easy to work with, who are difficult, who steal yards when you're not watching, who are not part of your team. For me, it's not avoidable necessarily, but where possible, I would always much rather work with people with whom we share a vision, we're going together, and when you screw up, I pick you up, and when I screw up, you pick me up, than when I screw up, you go, told you to screw it up. That, I think, where possible, and it's easier as a small business to navigate that way, it's not easy to necessarily live that way, but wherever possible, working with good people, I think goes a really long way.
Amazing. So one last question. It's a very simple one to answer. As entrepreneurs, there are some incredible highs and there are some deep lows. But after all said and done, is it worth it?
Good question. So part of this session, my one slide just to use it because I made it, part of this session was motivated by this little Facebook post that roughly said, running a company can be hard. Some people have said, if you've got mental health challenges, don't do it. It's not advice I necessarily agree with. But for the people I know who are doing this, if you're struggling, let's have a chat. And I got a few emails like, dude, you're okay. I'm good. But this was after a really good day. This was the average day after a really good day that felt like a bad day because I hadn't achieved half of what I'd achieved the day before. That's messed up. So you end up paying for the good days if you're not careful. The question was?
Is it worth it?
Yeah. I mean, this is worth it. I mean, and please have amazing conversations with some fantastic people. Be around for the best of it, which is you guys. And if you want to buy me a beer, then great. Thank you, guys. We'll close that there before Michael yells at me for being over time.
Amazing. Thank you, Chris. too, bud.